games, over 125 yards for him. But Fran's right, the defense and the way they played tonight, that's 3 straight games where the defense didn't allow a point in the second half. Am I right about that?
I think you might be right, yeah.
Yeah, I think they
No, they gave points up in the second half last week against the Jets.
Yeah.
When they let them,
when they let them score. You're right. I forgot about that. So scrap that. Either way, the defense did a great job for the 3rd straight week. And with an offense like the Miami Dolphins that they pose such a threat on so many different levels. You're talking about explosive plays with Tyreek Hill. You're talking about a running game that can be very tricky. The Eagles did a great job on the run tonight with the exception of one run. But the fact that they got out to Tua all night long, I mean, it's just a tremendous job. And it's one of those defensive performances that can go unnoticed because of what happened on the offensive side of the ball. But I wanted to make sure I started off by just saying they just held this Miami Dolphins team to 10 points. I know they scored on the pick 6, but the defense only gave up 10 tonight.
Yeah, and another 3 of those 10 even came on the other short field from the turnover in the first half as well. So the defense really held up their end of the bargain. And we're going to break down some plays. We're going to look at some stuff as to what the defense, it seemed like they were doing, but a ton of credit to Sean Desai, the defensive coaching staff, getting a shorthanded back 7 ready to go here against the Dolphins.
Yeah, we have a lot to dive into, but Ike, I need to let you know something. YouTube didn't catch your victory, so you got to do it again.
Oh, you need another one.
The people want to see it.
YouTube didn't catch the victory.
You gotta give us another. Have you ever done a double victory?
I've never done a double victory.
I was told to ask you to do a double victory.
Hey, look, it's Kelly Green night. You got to give the people what they want.
And the bow tie is looking good tonight. Victory! Woo!
Yeah.
The double dip.
Come on,
the victory
man.
so
like
nice
it.
you screamed it twice.
Yes.
There we go, people. Well, this was a game heading into it where it was a measuring stick game for both sides because this was the most dynamic offense the Eagles defense has faced. It's multidimensional. They are crazy, crazy fast, not just at wide receiver, running back, but also how quickly Tua gets the ball out. But for the Dolphins, the Eagles have been their toughest opponent. Combined record of all the teams Miami beat heading into today, 5-24. They had never beat a team over 500. So this was a real measuring stick game for both sides. What did we learn about the Dolphins and what did we learn about the Eagles?
Well, I mean, listen, I think the Dolphins just ran into another good football team. The Eagles are a very good football team. I don't care if it was Kansas City that came in, Buffalo. Like, you better be on your A game when you play the Philadelphia Eagles, especially in our building. So I think the Dolphins are still a very good team. I just do. I just think the Eagles are a better team. I mean, you're talking about both sides of the football. Really, the defense was the difference in this game tonight. The Eagles offensively were able to move the ball up and down the field, couple turnovers, stalled some drives for them. But for the most part, they got what they wanted through the air. And we've seen that against this Dolphins offense this season. And from the Eagles' defensive standpoint, this was a game I wanted to see because I felt like this was the best offense we had faced by far. And that's how you truly measure yourself, is going up against the best. And Tyreek Hill is the most dangerous player in the National Football League. And Tua led the league in every major quarterback category coming into this game. And to hold him to just barely over 200 yards, 1 touchdown pass tonight, they sacked him several times and got an interception off of him. Man, this is the best defensive performance I've seen considering who the competition was in the last 3 years.
It's certainly a vote of confidence for the Eagles, especially with their defense. And we are joined now by Dave Spadaro, Eagles insider, down at that Kelly Green field at Lincoln Financial Field. And Dave, as we were talking about the Eagles defense, this is a Miami offense that entered the game averaging 37 points per game, 498 yards per game, and the Eagles held them to 17 points and 244 yards. For you, what was the key on defense?
Yeah, they held them to 10 points. They actually held them to 1 touchdown drive, that drive at the end of the first half. The Eagles' defense, magnificent. Great pressure up front. They made the Dolphins one-dimensional. They were able to mix up the coverages. I thought the Eagles tackled exceptionally well. To hold Tyreek Hill to 88 yards, okay, 11 catches and the touchdown, but only 88 yards, that's pretty remarkable. That's something that, nobody has done other than the Buffalo Bills this season. Just a terrific design from Sean Desai. And the Eagles were disciplined. They were more physical. And I think Tua just kind of took a beating today. And the Eagles were winning one-on-one battles up front. I thought it was just the best defensive performance. And again, remember, the interception return for a touchdown, not on the defense. The way the Eagles held the early giveaway from Hurts, the fumble, and Miami only turned that into 3 points. And then the late interception from Darius, big play, Slay, just outstanding performance from an Eagles defense that we have all been wondering about this season. They have turned in 3 really good performances back to back to back.
Especially late in games, there's been moments in the last few games where the defense has showed up big to help them close out these wins. There was moments in this game, however, where it felt tight. It felt like we didn't know if the Eagles were going to be able to get out of this one with a win. When was the momentum shift for you?
You know, there were a couple of them. Late in the first half, Eagles had that 3rd and 18 on defense, and the Dolphins converted it and then scored the touchdown. I'm thinking, that could really break a team. Then the Eagles defense comes out and gets the hold at the beginning of the second half. But obviously, the big one was the answer from the offense after the Jalen Hurts pick 6. The way the offense, 8 plays, 75 yards, driving down the field, playing with confidence, putting the ball in the end zone. Just a great answer. And that changed everything in that fourth quarter when the Eagles really dominated the Miami Dolphins.
Speaking of the offense, what did you make of the Eagles' offensive game plan and their execution?
Marissa, I really liked the way the Eagles stuck with the run. It wasn't pretty. It was at times very difficult to get things going with the run, but they stuck with it. Jalen Hurts didn't get down after the fumble, didn't get down after the interception, got the ball to A.J. Brown, got the ball to Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert had his touchdown. And the Eagles, other than that late possession there, 4 touchdowns and 5 scores in 5 red zone opportunities. And that is what we have all been waiting for, a red zone team that for the last 2 seasons under Nick Sirianni and with Jalen Hurts, they were great in the red zone. This year, lagging in the first month and a half of the season. Tonight, they were outstanding.
Yeah, that red zone offense, it was almost that last piece of the puzzle that we needed to see put in place. And do you know what else was outstanding? That beanie. So if you can maybe get me one, I know you know a guy.
Exactly. I know a guy.
Send 3 over here.
By the way, the atmosphere, once again, the Eagles just knocking it out of the ballpark. Incredible here at Lincoln Financial Field, playing the 80s and the 90s music all the way throughout. And at one point, Jalen Hurts had to quiet the crowd. The crowd was singing, "Aha, take on me." And it was really cool. So it worked. Congratulations to the Eagles marketing department and everybody who's in the operations department here with the stadium. It got the crowd juiced up and the energy stayed throughout. And it really helped the Eagles in the fourth quarter.
For sure. Nothing says get the crowd started like, "Aha, take on me." I think everybody can
Exactly.
agree on that. Thanks so much for your time, Dave.
All right, guys.
So we touched on a little bit of everything there with Dave, offensive game plan, defensive game plan. Jalen Hurts, to me, this was his game to show up because he left that Jets game last week with career lows, 4 interceptions, and we heard him on the postgame show talk about accountability, how it starts with him. And I thought this was a really interesting game because not only was he facing new adversity coming back from the Eagles' first loss this season, but he's also facing the shadows of old adversity, playing against Tua, the guy who took his spot in the national championship at halftime. And he had to transfer because of that, and all the layers to this. And for him to bounce back after that interception for 2 touchdowns and lead this team to victory, I think spoke volumes to what we've seen from him. How much did this continue to grow your confidence in Jalen Hurts?
Well, I think he did a tremendous job. Each week he shows you a different layer to his sort of maturity as a quarterback, how he's handling adversity in a game, and this stuff is going to happen. If you play long enough, you're a quarterback, you're going to have some series that you want the football back, a throw that you wish you could have back. And it's the quarterbacks who have a short-term memory that can go out there and forget about the last negative play. He's looking forward to the next one. And after that pick 6, I was interested in how he was going to come out and play on that next drive. And to no surprise, he led the team right down the field, some big throws, made some big runs when he needed to, and got us a touchdown with A.J. Brown to really regain the lead there. And then after the interception that Tua had there, I thought that was a huge drive going down there and the big play to A.J. Brown. So, Jalen, I think each week we get to see a different layer to his game, and they're not going to all be pretty. They're not going to all be pretty. Even the best quarterbacks that's ever played the game have had to bounce back from a bad series or two this kid has all the makings of what you want in a great quarterback.
Hey, you talk about what happens after that pick six. He had 2 touchdown drives ensuing after that. So you had the touchdown drive that ended with the A.J. Brown, then Kenny Gainwell finishing it off. The Eagles win by 2 touchdowns in this game. And it really starts with how the Eagles responded, how Jalen Hurts responded after that pick six, which, look, at the end of the day, that was a little bit of a fluky play. The defense made a nice play in terms of having an answer for that RPO. They send 2 rushers at Jalen Hurts on that side. The ball gets, caroms off the one guy's leg, bounces up in the air, and a defensive or a linebacker picks it off and takes it the other way for a touchdown. I think when you look at Jalen Hurts in this game, he made the plays that were there to be made against a defense and a defensive scheme that can be tough to go against. I think you loved the resiliency he showed in this game against the Dolphins.
How much does this performance, and especially the resilience he showed in those the 2 drives after the pick six, almost erase or help subdue the nervousness maybe we felt about what we saw against the Jets?
Well, for me, I didn't have much concern about Jalen because, listen, you're going to have games like that. It happens to the best of the quarterbacks that have ever lined up under center. You play enough in this league, believe me, you're going to have to tip your cap to your opponent because they got the best of you that day. But to me, it's always about what do you do afterwards? Do you allow one bad game to linger into 2, 3, 4 bad games? Those are the types of quarterbacks that get ran out of this league. It's when the bad games continue to pile up. And the one thing about him, you know that he's so focused. You know what it was like for him in practice this week. He knew all the comparisons and things that would be brought up this week when facing Miami and Tua being on the other side of the field. He was not going to allow that to happen in his building tonight, especially not on Kelly Green night. He just wasn't going to allow that to happen.
No, and that's all, again, to Ike's point, that's what you're looking for in your quarterback is to keep the ship steady, make sure that you keep the main thing, right? All the things that he always talks about. I think when you look at Jalen Hurts, that's what he has come to exemplify over the course of his career.
Well, we know that early in the season, the Eagles were getting wins, but not everybody was satisfied with those wins. They weren't pretty wins. They weren't maybe convincing wins, if you will. How satisfied and content, you work in radio, I think you know when people are going to call in. Doesn't this game, though, have more of a sense of this was a real victory because of the opponent?
Of course, yes. I mean, the people going to nitpick. They'll find things to nitpick about. That's just people who are looking for something to complain about. But I'm one of the people who says a win is a win. So I don't need a pretty win. An ugly win is still the same in the standings. And that's the way I look at it. This team has won 6 of their 7 games. And sometimes you have to find a way to win these types of games. I tell you what, this game isn't much different than what we saw earlier in the season in some of the games. There's some turnovers in there. There's some plays that they want to have back. But for the most part, you came away with the W. And the thing I believe that fans will take from this is that the quality of the opponent. See, what tends to happen is when you're playing teams like New England early in the season, Washington, teams like that, the fans don't necessarily have a high opinion of. They want you to go out there and beat them as if it's Alabama playing Citadel or something, right? Like they think this is college football where you're just going to beat teams by 30 and 40 points. That doesn't happen in the NFL. You better come with your A game every week or that team across from you will steal one from you. And at the end of the day, when that clock runs down, if you have more points than your opponent has, believe me, the players can sleep a lot easier at night. There's games that you lose 34-27, and he can throw for 400 yards. You think those players feel good after that game? They put up all those stats? No, they don't, and neither do fans. So to me, a win is a win, and this is a win that I believe because of who the opponent is, they will feel more satisfied with it.
I mean, to your point, Chris Collinsworth said at the end of the broadcast, he said, no matter what, this is a win for Miami. I don't think anybody in that locker room for Miami feels that way.
They don't feel that way.
They do not feel that way in the visiting locker room right now as we sit here. So I think when you look at this team, you said it at the top, Marisa, this is a litmus test game on both sides. The Eagles going up against another 5-1 squad. What can you do against what has been the most explosive offense, not just in football this year, but if you look at the last decade, the last 2 decades, what this offense has been able to do on film, yes, against teams that have not had great records, but this offense has been explosive. They have been efficient. They've done it running the ball, throwing the ball, attacking downfield, going in the quick game, and the Eagles had answers for everything in this game. What they were able to do to put the ceiling on the deep ball, to rally to the football and make tackles down in the flat, to take away the first read for Tua Tagovailoa, force him to hold on to the football. He had 4 sacks in this game. They were 4 of 11 on third down. Just an outstanding performance from this defense. It's something, honestly, this is one that you point to 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks from now and say, like, that was the game where you felt like, yeah, this defense can be really, really good, especially when they get healthy.
And to your point, we entered this game thinking, again, this is a secondary that's a bit beat up. There's so much rotation in the secondary that we don't know what the best chemistry is because haven't been able to put them all together. Yeah. And knowing who the Dolphins have as wide receivers, some of the best in the game, it was a point of concern knowing that our secondary could be exposed in a way. And for them to show up the way they did and just completely cut off that leg of the Dolphins, so to speak. And I just also want to let everybody at home know, if you want to ask Ike a question, drop it in the comments below for Ask Ike, presented by Ponley Hockey. He loves answering those questions, don't you, Ike?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, come up
do.
with some pretty good ones. Yeah, it keeps the mental gymnastics going.
Right. I know you get tired talking to us all the time, but I want to go back to the Eagles' offense real quickly because they were in a similar situation this week as they were last week, where the Jets were out of their 2 starting cornerbacks, and they weren't able to get the pass game going. This week, same thing. Dolphins didn't have their 2 starting cornerbacks, but the pass game got lit up. What was the difference?
Well, they stuck with it, and they kept a balanced offense, too. You know, you look at the time of possession, and the Eagles, I think, held the ball close to 37 minutes in this game. And we talked about that being key coming into this game against this Miami Dolphins offense. You want to be able to possess the football. So you saw them come out trying to establish the running game. They tried to establish the running game, mixed in some passes when they saw the opportunity, and then took their shots when they needed to. But you could tell that this was more of an offensive game plan that was going to be a little more balanced throughout the day. And I love that. I really do, because I thought keeping that Miami Dolphins offense on the sideline is going to keep your defense fresh, right? You keep those D linemen fresh. They were able to get after Tua all night. Jordan Davis, Sweat. Hassan Reddick, it almost looks like he's shot out of a cannon every time he's rushing the passer. Fletcher was in there. So I thought our defense was the key to tonight's victory. But then on the offensive side of the ball, I thought having that balanced attack is really what helped us.
Yeah, certainly getting Lane Johnson back. I think the pass protection was much more consistent in this game. A lot of credit to Lane for gutting it through that injury and being out there. Look, it wasn't all pretty going up against a good young rusher in Jalen Phillips, but certainly got the job done and was able to keep Jalen Hurts clean more often than not. And to Ike's point, looking over on the other side of the ball, defensively, I thought the guys on the edge for the Eagles defense. You look at Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. Sweat had 2 sacks in this game. Reddick had, 2 or 3 tackles for loss in the run game. There was one that was -5. There was another one that was -3. You could basically jot those down as sacks because what they did to the Dolphins on those early downs, getting them behind the sticks early on in those possessions, that really played in the Eagles' favor because when it's 3rd and 18, when it's 3rd and 14, you take the play action, the misdirection, the eye candy, all that motion that we talked about. Throw that out the window when it's 3rd and 18 because all that stuff does not matter as much. Now, if you're the Eagles defense, you could play your coverage and worry about your keys and get the job done. So I think you give a lot of credit, certainly, to the guys up front. But I'm excited to go through the film tomorrow because I really want to see what the nuts and bolts were of some of these coverage schemes. We'll get a little bit into that here throughout the show. But I thought the Eagles did a really good job of making things difficult for Tua in this game.
Yeah, you pointed out while we were watching the game that the Eagles were showing so many different looks just to get to a thinking just a little bit more, making him have maybe an extra second of thought before he got the ball out. And that was huge heading into this game, making sure to get his timing maybe a little slower and making sure he can not go through his progressions as quickly. So what did you see in terms of maybe a confusion look that the Eagles were showing on defense?
Yeah, I think that there's one play that really stood out to me was there was a 3rd down incompletion to Braxton Berrios, and that was one that happened in the first half where once you go to the film and you take a look, pre-snap, the Eagles were doing some things from a front standpoint that really kind of gets the quarterback thinking. You see all these guys up on the line of scrimmage. This is a double mug look. Everybody in the league shows this. It looks like it's press man coverage on the outside. And Tua wants to go to his slot receiver, Braxton Berrios. He's going to do a little return motion here. Again, some eye candy where he's going to settle in underneath, and he's going to try and get beyond the sticks. Watch Eli Ricks, rookie, undrafted free agent, prepared for that motion. But now, this is not man coverage. This is actually going to be cover two. Darius Slay's got eyes on the quarterback. Eli Ricks, he's got eyes on the quarterback. So they're watching Tua, and they say, hey, you know what? We know that Tua thinks he's got man coverage here. That's been our identity. He's trying to find Berrios in the soft spot of this zone coverage, but it's not going to be there. And watch how Slay and Ricks really converge on that gap in the zone coverage. They take the throw away. It's incomplete, and the Eagles get off the field. I mentioned 4 of 11 on third down. The Eagles defense did a great job of clouding the picture, and sometimes it's going to be what you do up front to say, hey, you know what, this ball's got to come out fast, and they're going to send pressure here. It's man coverage. Where's going to be my favorable matchup? Let's try and force the issue as an offense. Well, the Eagles did a good job of mixing up their fronts, mixing up their coverage looks, and I thought that made him hold on to the ball just a tick longer than normal. That leads to 4 sacks. I got to think that's the most he's been sacked this year. I have to go back and look at those numbers, but he is not. I mean, if you look at pressure rate, sack rate, QB hit rate, all those numbers, the Dolphins were way out in front. Tua just had not gotten his jersey dirty enough over the course of this season. The Eagles did a good job of doing that tonight.
Yeah, and the defense came up with some big plays down there in the red zone. If you really want to look at the difference in this game, it's 2 things. Penalties. The Dolphins had 10 penalties. The Eagles had 0. That's an awesome. It's hard to go through an entire game and not have a penalty. So hats off to the Eagles for being a disciplined football team tonight, pre-snap and after the snap. And then the turnovers down in the red zone. You know, whether it was turnover on downs where they were able to stop Miami from getting in the end zone, or the big interception that Slay had down there, that really could have been the difference in the game. The Eagles converting for touchdowns instead of field goals down there in the red zone, and then keeping Miami out of the end zone.
A.J. Brown had himself a night tonight with 1 touchdown in this win, and earlier he spoke to the media about getting this big victory.
You know, it goes in the win column, most importantly. I like how we came out and we played. You know, we matched the intensity. You know, we played good style of football. I think besides the 1 turnover, I think we protect the ball pretty well. But we still got a lot to do, still got a lot to work on and a lot to, like I said, work on. So, yeah.
Were you proud of the offense, the way you guys responded after the turnover or after the pick six?
Yeah, for sure, man. I know we had to. We all had to get off the mat. You know, that was a tough blow, but we were still right there in it. You know, we know we had the momentum. You know, we just had to execute.
And this man just couldn't be stopped tonight. I mean, even when he came down with the ball, he was fighting people off to pick up more yards after that catch. And that's exactly what we want to see from A.J. Brown.
Listen, his hands are a lot softer than I initially thought when we traded for A.J. Brown. I mean, he's made some catches this year where I just didn't think he was going to be able to pull the ball in. You know, the one on the sideline he made last week up in New York where he kept the ball on his shoulder and was able to pin it there. And the one he made late in the game today where he threw that deep pass and it was in double coverage. And A.J. caught the ball right between both defenders. I mean, he does a great job of concentrating on the football, and then when he gets his hands on it, he's pulling it in.
Yeah, that was something we talked about a year ago. Is that you go back to his days in Tennessee, and everything was like quick slants, yards after catch, middle of the field, and you knew he could bring that to the Eagles' offense. I mean, we saw how many slant routes did we see to A.J. Brown in this game, right? If it's 3rd and 5, if it's 2nd and 6. You can expect that the slant route is on the menu for Jalen Hurts in that situation. But seeing him be able to be that 3-level threat down the field, catch those deep over routes, those fade balls, those stop routes, he has shown that ability consistently to be a 3-level guy for this Eagles offense, and it's been invaluable. I mean, like you mentioned, it's 5 straight games now for 125 yards for A.J. Marisa, I mean, he's on a tear right now.
I mean, straight beast mode. I mean, these DBs don't want to tackle him.
No.
Once he catches the ball. He runs with such physicality. You know, you rarely see him go down with one guy. It's usually somebody trying to pull him down from behind, and he's dragging them along for either a first down or for a touchdown. It's just, man, he's what you ask for. And wanting a beast at wide receiver, he's what you ask for, and he's everything that we've needed around here at that position, as well as Devontae. But AJ just brings a different type of physicality to that position.
Yeah, and Shady McCoy agrees, so that's always, high praise when Shady gets on your side. And from a defensive perspective, though, Ike, when you have a receiver you're lining up against like A.J. Brown, what makes him so difficult, and what do you have to go through mentally in your checklist?
Well, the guy he reminds me so much, there's two guys. He reminds me of Anquan Bolden because of the size, and then he's just a shorter version of T.O. Like T.O. was so strong after he caught the ball. I don't care if you're a safety, a linebacker, a defensive end, corner, you weren't bringing him down one-on-one. He could stiff arm you. And guys like that, you don't want to embarrass you out there on the field. So from my position as a linebacker, if I'm ever over a guy like AJ, I'm saying, where's my help at? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, where's the help over the top? Because I shouldn't be lined up over AJ Brown.
Yeah, and that's what having a guy like that can line up inside, line up outside, and again, not to be repetitive, but attack all three levels. Now, if anybody in the back seven, you've got to be ready to handle A.J. Brown. Like if you're the middle linebacker, if you're the slot corner, if you're the left corner, the right corner, it doesn't matter. You're going to see some A.J. Brown. You're going to see some of number 11 when you face the Philadelphia Eagles. And Devontae Smith is the same way because they're both interchangeable in this offense. And so you have two conflicting skill sets that you've got to prepare for, but you're going to see both of them each and every game.
And speaking of, physical options on the receiving game, it's National Tight Ends Day, so happy National Tight Ends Day to all those who observe, including Dallas Goedert, who had a great game as well. The physicality through the middle, Miami was not able to really handle that from him, just being able for him to make those big plays cutting through as well. What did you see out of Dallas?
Dallas being Dallas, getting back to what we're used to seeing Dallas Goedert do. Get the ball in his hands. He's going to run after the catch. The touchdown, I love that play call down there in the red zone, the tight end screen. Remind me of the one he scored in Washington last year, I believe it was. So getting the ball in 88's hands is always a good thing.
Always a good thing to get the ball in his hands, and always a good thing to hear from him as well. Let's hear what he had to say after this one.
I think it started after the game in the locker room last week, and everybody was pretty upset that we didn't play to our standards. It was a poor game by a lot of people, and we flushed it out of our system and knew we had to come out and make a statement this week. And that's what we did.
Always good to hear from Dallas Goedert in this one, and he said, it was a great win for this team, and he played a huge part in it as well for him.
And that's the thing is when you get into some of those high leverage situations, when you're in the red zone, we saw the touchdown that Ike mentioned. I'm going to break that down a little bit later. You get into the opening drive, 2 straight catches of 22 yards to get the Eagles into scoring range. You get the third down catch that was so pivotal late in the game on one of those touchdown drives. It was 3rd and 8. He catches the shallow cross and goes for 12 yards. So 3rd down, red zone, opening drive, 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill. You can count on Dallas Goedert, number 88, to make plays, and that's why he's one of the best players at his position in the entire NFL.
And it's just another facet that makes the Eagles so hard to defend against because, as we said, you have to worry about A.J. Brown and the physicality he brings. You have to worry about Devontae Smith and the speed and agility and finesse he brings. And then there's Dallas Goedert, who's going to wreck you through the middle of the field and then there's the running game. But what I find interesting about this Eagles team is the offense has been so consistent in terms of personnel on the field. On the defensive side, we've seen so many different looks and so many different combinations. Today we saw Ike Reese and Sidney Brown and Josiah Scott. What did you make of the combinations out there?
Well, I think it was just impressive that you saw, first, it's game number 7, and that's the 7th different secondary combination so far for Sean Desai. I think you said it on Eagles game plan this week. Like you would not want to be in Sean Desai's shoes trying to get those guys ready on a weekly basis. But, Josiah Scott, he was not on the roster a week ago at this time, right? He gets signed. He was with the team in training camp, comes back. Sidney Brown, coming off injury, has not played in a few weeks. This was the most snaps that he played all season long. Terrell Edmonds, he comes in and he's playing every single snap. Ike Reese, undrafted free agent. He's going to have to play a new position. Was not a slot corner in college. Was an outside corner only, both at Alabama and at LSU. And it's like Mekhi Garner last week. He had never played safety before. He was an outside corner only in college. They got him ready and got him prepped, and he stepped in and played safety. So a lot of credit goes to these coaches, to Sean Desai, to DK McDonald, to the rest of the coaching staff, just getting these guys ready on the back end.
Yeah, and I'll tip my cap to the young players, man. Listen, you're Eli Ricks and you lined up in front of Tyreek Hill, boy, a lot of things can happen with you bodily function-wise. You know what I mean? So
Say no more.
TMI.
I'm just saying.
We got it.
But I give him credit. I give him credit for understanding what his assignment was tonight, going out there, playing relaxed, didn't have any mental errors, didn't have any unnecessary penalties. Because when you're a young player, those are the things that usually happens. You get a little nervous because you're out there. You don't want to be embarrassed on national TV. You start reaching and grabbing. Eli Ricks did a great job tonight. Didn't hear his number called all night, and that's a good thing. The young players that were out there in the secondary didn't make any bad plays to extend the drive. Those are things you worry about when you have new groups out there every week, is will everybody play assignment football, do their job, and then also play smart football while you're out there. And so I thought our defense did a great job of that, especially on the back end, because that's not an easy task going up against this Miami offense and trying to keep Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill in front of you.
And by the way, Eli Ricks, for anybody that watched the preseason and saw the plays that he made, just the personality that he brings to the field, he is not lacking for confidence. And that is something that at that position, that is extremely important. You need that mentality when you were going to play defensive back in the NFL.
So the Eagles in the first half held Miami to just 10 points. And this was a great defensive performance by the Eagles, as we've been saying all show long. And everybody rose to the occasion, as we said, the young guys who don't get a lot of looks, and they were tasked with, some pretty big jobs today. What did the Eagles expose about Miami's offense that maybe we haven't seen opponents been able to do?
Oh, physicality. I think the Eagles got physical tonight with this Miami Dolphins offense. And I'm not talking about at the line of scrimmage with the receivers jamming them. I'm talking about in that tackle box at the line of scrimmage with our defensive line going up against their offensive line. Fran mentioned some of the different looks that they were doing on the back end to force Tua to hold the ball for one more tick. But then you saw that defensive line getting after this Miami's running game, getting after them in the passing game. I just thought they did a great job of showing Miami that we're not going to just allow you to run around and be scot-free. You catch the ball, you run the football, we're going to come up and be physical with you. It's a different brand of football than what Miami's used to having to deal with. And I thought the Eagles imposed their will on the Dolphins.
And that's the thing, too, is that when people think of Miami, people think of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the pass game. But this was the #1 run game by basically every metric coming into this football game. So when you look at what the Dolphins could not do in this game, and that's establish any kind of presence on the ground. Raheem Mostert could not do anything in the first half. There were Reddick TFLs, but you saw Nicholas Morrow in the backfield. You saw Zach Cunningham playing downhill. You saw the safeties playing downhill. You saw everybody rallying to the football in the run game. And then they kind of had to pull some rabbits out of the hat to get some explosive plays in the run game. Coming out of the locker room in the third quarter, they did a couple of misdirection plays, and they were able to bust off, I think, what was the long run? 11 yards for Mostert, 8 yards? There was not anything explosive to be found in this run game on a consistent basis. The Eagles did such a great job of shutting down the run, and that made them a little bit one-dimensional because the offense was doing their part, and that was an outstanding job here from the Eagles defense, really shutting down that run game.
Yeah, the Eagles only allowed 45 rushing yards. The Dolphins entered today averaging about 181 yards per game in the run game. So it's incredible, really. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, maybe this could be a Super Bowl preview. We could see that. How convinced are you that this could be what we see?
I still think the Dolphins are a good team. I really do. I mean, they just ran up against a better team tonight in the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see how they finish out the rest of the season. That's a tough conference to have to get through when you look at the Kansas Cities and the Buffaloes and other teams, Baltimore, teams like that over there. So I don't know if they'll be meeting us out in Vegas, but we'll be out in Vegas. I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
Ike bought his ticket.
Yeah, I predicted that. So, yeah, could they still be a team that gets through the AFC? Could be. I think they got a nice little rude awakening tonight, because when you get to January and you're trying to win, especially if you don't have home field advantage, you're going to have to go play some physical football, particularly either in the Northeast and Buffalo. You may have to go out there to the Midwest where it's also cold. So the Dolphins, I think they weren't at full strength. The running back, Achin, he wasn't there tonight. So I still think they're a good football team. And the reason why I keep saying that, because I don't want the Eagles win to be downgraded by people saying Miami's not a good football team. It's a 5-1 team. that was leading the league in scoring. So to me, I think the Eagles raised their level of play and showed everybody that, yeah, we are one of the upper echelon teams.
Yeah, at the end of the day, to your point, this was a good football team on both sides of the football, and the Eagles were the better team tonight, and so they were able to come away with the victory, and well deserved on both sides.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is what you were saying, Ike, in terms of people not downgrading this win, because a lot of people maybe in national media don't always want to put the Eagles record in the highest regard as maybe it should be, given like, oh, they only won by this many points. What should be the conversation about the Eagles right now?
That the Eagles are real, and any concern about what you may have thought you saw in the first 5 weeks of the season or what have you, 6 weeks of the season, saying, the team doesn't look as sharp as they did last year or what have you. No, this was a game that we wanted to see exactly where we were. This was a 5-1 team coming in here, coming off a big win last week. We're coming off a tough loss last week against the Jets. And for the most part, I thought they really controlled this game. I really do. I thought they controlled the game. If not for a couple turnovers, the Dolphins wouldn't even got 10 points. And, credit to the Eagles defense, that first turnover that Jalen fumbled, they got 1 yard and then kicked a field goal. So they were already in scoring range when they got the ball, and they couldn't punch it in for a touchdown. Some of that was due to penalties on their own or what have you. But still, I thought the Eagles put the league on notice. I know it's still a long way to go before this season is over with, but I think anybody who was having doubts about who's the top team or who's one of the top teams in this league, I think after the night, that storyline will be different this week.
Yeah, I think ultimately, at the end of the day, you're always looking for finding different ways to win. And the Eagles, I think, showed in this football game that, hey, you know what? What have we seen so far? We've seen them throw the football all over the yard. We've seen them run the football all over the yard. In this game, to put the clamps on the most explosive offense in football, the way they did defensively, and doing it with a myriad of coverages, with kind of mixing and matching pieces on the back end, and then allowing that front four to go to work. Because we know the Eagles' defensive line, one of the best in football. That again showed tonight. Jalen Carter getting another sack. Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis combining for one. You get Josh Sweat in for a couple. Reddick didn't even get a sack tonight. You start getting a Nolan Smith gets his first sack of his career. So everybody chipping in all across at all three levels. Really impressive game.
Everyone showed up to play this game, especially on the defense, especially in that Kelly Green. And the vibes were so high. We saw Nick Sirianni basically losing his mind at certain points on the sideline, and we're here for it. So let's hear what he had to say at the podium.
My son's waiting out there. He's tired. He was crying. He wanted to come in here with me, so you guys don't have to. I don't have to answer tough questions, but he's crying out there because he's sleepy. All right, hit it.
Hey Nick, have you seen a wide receiver play at this level that AJ Brown has done?
Man, AJ is a phenomenal player. He just has this unbelievable ability to come down with the football. Nobody catches the ball as pretty as AJ Brown. Nobody. I can't tell you how many times at practice. I'm just in awe of good wide receivers and just the skill that they have, and nobody goes and snags the football like him. There's nobody I've seen and it's so much cooler in person to see that, and when it's on your team. So he's on a tear right now. And the other guys are playing good too. Why is he on a tear? Well, because Devontae Smith's on one side, and Dallas Goedert is in the middle, and DeAndre Swift's in the backfield, and now Julio Jones over there. So appreciative of Howie. And man, I thought there was something I thought I would never say this, but I think this week at practice, AJ was having an unbelievable practice, and I went up to Mr. Laurie and I'm like, there's no way I ever thought this would have came out of my mouth. Thanks for the $100 million to pay AJ Brown. I really appreciate that. Like a guy from Jamestown, New York, I never thought I'd ever say, hey, thanks for the $100 million to pay AJ Brown.
Number one ranked offense to just 17 points.
We got a good defense. Great job to the defensive staff, first and foremost, to put them in positions to make plays. But at the end of the day, it's about the players making the plays. And so what I thought was really, we made them one-dimensional. Because that team, man, I can't tell you how much respect I have for Mike and his staff and those players. I mean, I talk about the guy that's the prettiest catching the ball in A.J. Brown. I ain't never seen anybody as fast as Tyreek Hill in person. Damn. He's fast as hell. And so but great job by our DBs. We knew he was going to get some plays and this and that, but Starts with our defensive line and being able to apply pressure, which I thought we did, and the DBs did a good job of making them hold the ball a tick when were able to get home. But it started with making them one-dimensional, and I think you saw some good things there with Hassan, with the way they kind of stopped the toss crack play and set the edge. Because they've been highly successful on that play. And Mike did a good job of getting it going because he ended up hitting a couple. They ended up hitting a couple by disguising it and not tossing it and handing it behind. Like, I can't tell you how much respect I got for that staff. But great job by our defensive staff. Great job by our defensive players.
What would you say about Sean Desai, though, that he's been able to do this with so many injuries in that secondary?
Yeah, I mean, you see why we hired him, right? We knew the type of guy we were getting. I just think he's done a phenomenal job of, what I think he's just done such a good job of is what I admire of any coach, adapting to the personnel that you have. And I think he's done that, and we'll continue to look to climb. But Sean has done a great job of putting the guys in positions to make plays, and our defensive staff, they all contribute to that. So hats off to all of them, and obviously hats off to Howie because it's all about the players, and we're doing a great job up front. Again, Hassan Reddick doesn't have to sack the quarterback to affect the game. Josh Sweat, same thing, being able to, and again, I'll have to watch the tape, but just live, it looked like those two guys had an unbelievable game.
Nick, on the 4th and 1 play from your own 26, it looked like you needed a little time to think about whether you wanted to go for it or not.
I didn't know what the down and distance was exactly. I think, initially I thought I thought it was a little bit further back than it was, and then I got a good look of where the spot was. I probably should have been I didn't love that I had to call a timeout there, but I had to get a second look at where the spot was. I thought initially it was 2, but it was more like a yard, and I thought to myself, well, I'd be crazy if I don't go for it on 4th and 1 with the type of guys that we have, and so again, it goes back to the dudes that we got and making the play.
Psychological edge do you think it gives you guys that you can run that play?
It's 1st and 9 every down. Every first down is 1st and 9. Knowing that if you get to 4th and 1, a lot of faith in that play. So it was awesome. Again, just Jason Kelsey starts it off. Jalen Hurts, is right there. Haven't been able to drive because you've seen it, right? You've seen it across the league that people can't do it like we can do it. They can't do it like we can do it, and so I'm making my plug right there. Like, don't ban this play. Like, if everyone could do it, everybody would. Where's the camera? If everybody could do it, everybody would do it.
It looked like he got banged up. AJ alluded
to
it.
Rob, I know you're not here every day. When we're with the local media, I'm probably not giving you that information. We'll see. I got to talk to the trainers. I got to talk to Jalen. We'll get him in tomorrow. John's going to ask me tomorrow. Elliot's going to ask me tomorrow. How's Jalen? I'm going to say I got to see him a little bit more. I'll let you know Wednesday. Wednesday's going to come. It's going to be before practice. They're going to ask me again. I'm going to say I got to see how it's looking out there, and I'll get you some more information on Friday. Friday, we'll see if he's on the injury report or not. And when Friday comes, they're going to ask, what do y'all think? What's going to happen here? I said, we'll get you the injury report later in the day. I just string them along.
Nick, I know how you
You didn't like that, Bob?
I'm fine with it.
Nick, I know in general how you handle injuries, obviously, but this is the franchise quarterback. People seem concerned. Is there anything else you could give in terms of, did he put a brace on at halftime? Is he dealing with
Played the rest of the game, and he played at a very high level. You have to ask Jalen. I thought he played really, really outstanding. Man, he's a competitor. Man, there's nobody else I'd rather be our quarterback, and he played his butt off tonight. He's tough. Y'all saw. Y'all saw that he was going through a little something, and so he is tough. He is tough. He is tough. This game always comes down to physicality and toughness. It always does, no matter what, because it's and that's physical and mental toughness, and Jalen Hurts has both.
In the locker room, after last week's game, is this the kind of response you expected from your guys, just knowing their makeup, knowing their drive, how they work? Is this kind of what you expected?
Yeah, you know, you go back to work each week. It's dog mentality. No matter what happens, you go back to work each week. And that's the same message as it's going to be this week. You just want to keep improving so you're playing your best ball at the end of the year. And so, you know, I expect them to respond this game like they did last game because that's the type of guys we have.
You mentioned they had a bit of a turnover drought. Slay made that big peg. He kind of peeled off. It looked like a wheel route. I don't know how good of a look you saw at it, but is that more football IQ play, athleticism? What makes
Yeah, I mean, Slay has it all, right? Football IQ, athletic ability. I can't tell you how good of a leader Darius Slay is. And he'll be mad that I said Darius Slay, but I can't tell you how big of a leader he is. Like, I'm so glad he's on this football team. I'm so glad he's a captain because he works at it. He works to bring the young guys up. I'll say he brought Zach McPherson. Zach McPherson's down, right? When you go through injuries, you're going to be down. It's tough. He brought him to the baseball game the other day to spend time with them. Like, and that's something you guys want to know. And I feel comfortable saying that because I just want people to know how good of a player he is. Everyone knows how good of a player he is. He's tough. I just want everyone to know how good of a leader he is. And that when you have good leaders on your football team, you'll be able to handle the ups and downs of a season. And we got great leaders on this football team.
Last one, Zach.
In the locker room, the players kept talking about physicality. How did that factor into your messaging this week?
Yeah, I mean, our whole talk this week was about details and physicality, right? We lost on we did some things last week, detail-wise, that we want back. And, you know, when we talk about details, it's like, hey, we got all the talent we need in this room. And when the details are on, the talent can shine. And sometimes when the details is off, it doesn't matter how much talent you got. And so it was about details. It was about, you know, and it was about physicality, about being able to come out and lean. Like, I always feel like when we play our best is when we're leaning on, you know, obviously Jalen playing great, but we're leaning on those offensive and defensive lines. And so, you know, I felt that completely, like the time that we had to throw, the way we stopped the run, you lean on those guys. And so that was the message this week. But shoot, those guys went out and did it, and they played their butts off. I'll answer one more. I'm always the good guy here. Bob's the bad guy, and then I'm the good guy. It was Bob's birthday the other day. Yeah, thanks.
So it looked like Jalen was a little late coming out after the half, and Marcus was warming up. Was there some? Could it have been possible?
You know what? Marcus might have just been throwing. I didn't even tell Marcus to warm up. I knew Jalen was coming back in the game. I don't know. Yeah, he might be getting an IV. He gets IVs sometimes at halftime. So sometimes when you don't get the ball to start the second half, you can finish the IV. It was pretty hot out there. I might need an IV next time. But yeah, I think that's all that was about.
All right.
Yeah. Everybody good? Thanks, everybody.
Taking away from Nick Sirianni's press conference saying that they were able to make the Miami Dolphins one-dimensional, which is no easy feat considering they lead the league in almost every offensive category. So he really tipped his hat to the defense in this one, knowing that they had to be firing on all cylinders in order to get this win, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard to make a team like Miami one-dimensional when they run the ball as well as they do, and then they like to do everything off play-action pass, a lot of these motions. They gave you a lot of those dynamic schemes that they like to give every week, and the Eagles were well prepared for it because that stuff can make you nervous. You can have blown assignments. Somebody's running wide open free. You see that when you watch Miami Dolphins offensive highlights is that somebody's running free because there's a mistake made. You didn't see any of that tonight with the Eagles.
And that's the thing, and that's why I'm so excited to go through the film tomorrow is that on the broadcast, you can't see all of the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the back seven, but it didn't seem like the Eagles were playing a lot of man coverage where it's like, hey, Josiah Scott or Eli Ricks, you're one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, right? It seemed like they were playing a lot of zone coverage. You could even kind of see there, guys kind of getting to a spot and getting eyes back on the quarterback. So whether it was cover 4 or cover 2 or cover 6 or cover 3, whatever the coverages were, you saw that at the end of the day, you have to go out and execute your coverage. So no matter who it is, if it's Sidney Brown, Josiah Scott, Eli Ricks, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Nicholas Morrow, Zach Cunningham, right? The guys that the Eagles 5 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago didn't think they'd be counting on in Week 7 to beat another 5-1 team in prime time on Sunday Night Football with the Kelly Green jerseys on. The Eagles got those guys ready to play. And again, I think that's a huge hat tip to the coaching staff.
Yeah, guys that they didn't think they'd be counting on, and guys that maybe at a certain point they didn't hope they had to even call into this, and they're still showing up for this game. We cannot not talk about the Kelly Green because, my gosh, we're all rocking it right now a little bit. And the crowd tonight was absolutely in prime time. It was perfect. Driving down I-95, I could hear tailgates from like miles away from the link. And this crowd, I mean, I love these people. These are our people. Look at them. They're absolutely out of their minds, and we're here for every second of it. Not only do we just love the joy and the thrill of it all, but they had an impact on this game because they forced Miami off their rhythm several times, and fans at the link were just so loud and taking control of that sound that Miami had a delay of game, and they had to use 2 early timeouts in the second half because they had to recenter themselves. And then as that second half went along, they didn't have any timeouts left, and they couldn't stop and really control the game as they may have wanted to. Their clock management was a little bit off. But I love that the fans were able to be like, hey, quite literally, hold my beer, watch what we can do.
Yeah. I mean, the fans have been waiting on this for almost 30 years, since the last time the Kelly Green uniforms were still the official uniform of the Eagles. I believe it was 1995. That was the last year. And I know they wore them to celebrate the 1960 championship team in 2010. 50 years, they wore it for the first game of the season against Green Bay. But the fans have been waiting on these Kelly Green jerseys. It's something that's near and dear to their hearts. A lot of their parents grew up rooting for the Eagles when they wore these Kelly Green uniforms. I, unfortunately, never got a chance to wear the Kelly Green uniforms. So I'm more partial to the midnight green, but I understand what it means to this fan base. And it showed you. They've been waiting for it. From the time these jerseys went on sale this summer, they sold out of them immediately. And you could tell the whole stadium was Kelly Green tonight. It was a beautiful thing.
And that's the thing, is that the game starts, the Eagles go down, they get points. I know everybody would have loved a touchdown in that situation, but the team goes down, they get points. The Dolphins come out very first play, delay of game. Like that, you cannot let that happen. And the fans absolutely had an impact. And then, Marisa, you said it. They had to call timeout on the opening play, I believe, of 2 other series. That cannot happen as an offense, and the fans absolutely have an impact there on those.
Yeah, it's always great to see. I mean, we have the best fans. Let's not beat around the bush here. But I also want to touch on something Nick Sirianni really looked down the barrel of the camera and talked a little bit about the good old tush-push, brotherly shove, whatever we would want to call it. But they had 4 successful conversions on that tonight, the Eagles did. And he said, basically, if every team could do it well, they would do it well, and no one else can quite do it. Are you seeing different nuances in this play as we continue to see it used in different
I really
situations?
am not. I mean, maybe Fran notices something, but I don't notice anything differently than what they've already been doing. They just do it very well. They started practicing it years ago, and they pretty much have perfected it for the most part. And we do see other teams trying it, but they just aren't as good at it as the Eagles are. And as long as it's still a part of football, the Eagles should run it every opportunity they get a chance to. It's funny because it was that last 4th down that Coach Sirianni had decided to go for. You know, Fran and I, we're sitting there talking, and I jokingly said, would you go for it here? And we were deep in our own territory when he decided to go for it. But if it's 1 yard or less, why wouldn't you? It's hard to stop that play. Now, granted, if he doesn't get it, then he has to answer for it. But Chris Collinsworth mentioned this on the broadcast. You know, when he does get it, that is, to me, that's more than just going for it down there. That's saying I got total belief in my team, because you're deep in your own territory, and if you don't get it there, you put the Dolphins are right in scoring position. So that lets you know how much confidence they have in the play, and they run it the best.
Yeah.
4 for 4 once again here tonight. I mean, the Eagles are just unstoppable running this play. I mean, they've probably been stopped legitimately on, 2 of them all season long. They had a couple where they were like 4th and 3, and it was like, all right, we're kind of running the game, running the clock down, salting the game away. But in like gotta have it situations, I think they've been stopped like once or twice all season long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about how big the defense showed up today, and nobody showed up as big. Well, a lot of people did, but Big Play Slay showed up once again, and here's what he had to say in the locker room.
Oh man, I've been in that position a lot. You know what I'm saying? Big time moment. So Sunday night, I done made a lot of plays on these kind of like big days. So that's why my name Big Play. Really, you know what I'm saying? I make plays at critical moments and do what I can do.
This secondary.
Are we surprised at all that Big Play Slay showed up in a big-time moment, Sunday Night Football? He wasn't the only defensive player, though, Fran, that had a really great game. Nolan Smith, his first career sack as well.
Yeah, and I thought that the sack that happened late in the first half was a good example of what we were talking about earlier, and just presenting different looks to Tua Tagovailoa and saying, hey, you know what? This is what we think we're going to show you before the snap, but we're actually going to do something a little bit different. And we can go back to that play and take a look at exactly what the Eagles did, because when they line up, and you can see they're going to run a little short motion, what they do, they're going to run a little stop route on the outside. This is the stuff that we typically see. The Eagles look like they're going to run a typical four-man rush, but what you're going to get is Brandon Graham dropping out, and then you're going to get a linebacker coming from the second level and inserting into the pressure. And what that does is that puts that tackle into a tough spot, because he sees that blitzing linebacker and he says, oh, I got to make sure I stop him. But now you're cutting the defensive end loose. So why was Nolan Smith completely unblocked? That's because of the blitz call that Sean Desai put into play. Nolan Smith comes scot-free off the left side right into his face, and he's not able to be able to deliver this throw. You've got linebackers there in the second window to take away the throw that he wants. He has to hold on to the football, and Nolan Smith gets home. And again, this is just an example of what we were able to see on the broadcast that I'm excited to really dig into with the tape, because really, again, it comes down to we're going to show you one thing, but then we're going to take that away and show you something different after the snap. And that's what I thought the Eagles did such a good job of today in this game.
It really was a big part of the game plan. We talked about it during game plan, Fran, trying to figure out how do you get Tua to hold that ball for 1 more second, 2 more seconds, get him off that initial read, that first read, and then he seems to have a little bit of a scatterbrain as he has to go through his progressions.
Yep.
And you saw it right there when he couldn't get the ball out to the flat quick because Nolan was coming right to his face. That ball really should have been thrown away, but yet still he tucks it under, and then he's really not a great runner, and Nolan Smith was able to get him down. We saw that several times tonight where Tua wanted to get rid of the football, but he had nowhere to go with the ball because I believe the coverage confused him after the snap.
There was a play where Hassan Reddick was there to tackle the check down, right? So you saw them mixing and matching different pieces, dropping defensive linemen out, rotating coverages a certain way. And that's the thing. It's just like whenever we're talking about a great player, whether it's preparing for Aaron Donald or what are you going to do to take away Justin Jefferson, it's never one magic thing. It's never, this is the one thing that they're going to do to stop Justin Jefferson. This is the one thing they're going to do to cause Tua to hold on to the football. No, there are a lot of different things that you can use, a lot of different clubs in the bag, and Sean Desai used all the clubs in the bag here in this game to make sure he got the job done.
Yeah, and Tua is not used to being pressured. He entered the game the least pressured quarterback in the league.
Yep.
The Eagles are second in the league in QB pressure, so this was very much an uncomfortable situation for Tua, which is exactly what the Eagles wanted for him. We got one Ask Ike question in. Here's what the fans want to know, Ike. Are you ready for this one? They want to know, what's good with Ike's bow tie?
What's the what?
What's good?
Oh, what's good? Oh, yeah, you like that bow tie? Shout out to Amazon. And Melissa, our producer, yes.
Yeah.
All I'll say is let's not go too far with the shout-out to Amazon, because 2 ties were ordered, 1 tie
that's
showed
right,
up.
yeah. Only one of them came. That's right. You're
Poor
exactly
Fran.
right.
To be continued.
Night, Tuesday night, Fran is going to be rocking his
I'm
Kelly
gonna be sitting at
Green
home,
by the
yeah.
time that package arrives. Now, Ike's not the only one looking amazing tonight. A lot of these Eagles players showed up in a pretty great swag, and we cannot not talk about
Boy,
this.
Cam Calloway right there, man.
I mean,
Even
Dallas.
got my boy Goddard to wear a suit today.
Well, it is his national
It
holiday.
is National Tight
Yeah,
End Day.
it is
You're right.
National
That's a good
Tight End
suit. I
Day.
like that.
I like that
Really
he's
sharp.
carrying his cleats. A lot of stripes today. Not it?
Fletch is a little risky. Listen, Fletch takes chances. In fashion, you got to take chances. You got to take chances. I'll just leave it at that. I remember his Super Bowl outfit. I'm just saying.
So best dressed today.
Oh,
Devontae.
Slim
Devontae.
Reaper.
Yeah, that's
Slim
everything.
Reaper. That's my favorite guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did Jalen wear? He didn't put on the primetime suit today?
Oh, I don't know. I don't
know. We gotta
I don't think I've
check.
seen it.
I did not see it because you normally get a picture of him right
Yeah.
before the game. I didn't see one tonight.
We should be hearing from him soon, so maybe we'll see
Yeah, we
the.
should- oh,
we'll see
here
the
it
outfit.
is.
Oh, here we go. All
So
right.
he went pretty cash.
Yeah.
You're not.
Not the same as the
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Not the same as
It's a
Devontae.
little different.
I mean, listen, it slaps. That
Oh,
means
wow.
it's good.
Oh,
yeah. wow.
It's you.
Trying to keep up with
You're
the youth.
so hip, Ike.
Who says that sports radio is for the older demographic?
Exactly.
My
man.
God.
Exactly. This is the way I got to communicate with my own kids nowadays. Man.
It slaps.
Yeah, that slaps.
Yeah, they're probably going to tell you, please don't ever say that.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's already did that before.
It's funny how this happens after he turns 50 last
Yeah.
week. Now
Oh,
they
yeah.
just start
Dude, with the reminder of the 50, what's going on, man? Yeah, I got reminded of that today at the game from a lot of people who didn't see me last week. Yeah,
That's always so nice.
Yes, it's all good.
So going back to just this game, almost zooming out just a little bit, because last week was a game that everybody almost was penciling in a W and then quickly had to erase it and put the first L in.
Yep.
And this was a game where we weren't really sure how it was going to go. Were the Eagles going to be too exposed? Were they going to be able to live up to the test? Why was it that the Eagles were able to overperform against a top opponent like the Dolphins?
Well, because I think they were disappointed in themselves and how they played last week. It's one thing to lose a game when you put your best foot forward. It sticks with you a little longer when you realize you didn't play as well as you're capable of playing. And, no disrespect to the Jets because they play hard every week, but the Eagles were expected to go up there and win that game, and they didn't. And not only did they not win the game, they didn't play very well last week. So I knew that they would be locked in this week on national TV. This is a tough stretch coming up for the Eagles over the next 6 to 7 weeks. Playing this game tonight and all the emotion that went into this game coming off that loss last week, guess what? You got to get it all back up next week in Washington for a 1 o'clock game. And the last time we played Washington at 1 o'clock, it took us a half in order to get going. So next week will be a tough game as well because it's the second time you played this divisional opponent, I believe, in a month. And then you get the Cowboys after that. So, and then you get the bye week, come back Kansas City. It's a tough stretch for them right here. And to me, this was a great test to start that stretch off because this is the type of focus you need playing up against a team like this.
When you talk about focus and being ready for any single test, no one is arguably more focused than Jalen Hurts. Here's what QB1 had to say after the win.
It is.
Jalen, how are you feeling?
I feel fine. I'm happy in how we responded, especially coming off of last week. It was a great opportunity, a great team out there. A lot of respect for them as a team, and I think we played. Really good complementary football. Had some negative plays, obviously, with the fumble by me. Can't have that, and I must be living bad with the other one, the tip ball. But I'm just happy how we played together. Happy how we persevered, and we found ways to respond, and really did a good job in the fourth. So.
From a physical standpoint, looked like you were a little hollow.
I'll be fine.
You ended up putting a brace on Jalen during the game.
I did.
Is that anything you think that will affect you going forward?
I hope not.
Did it happen in game or?
No.
What do you make of AJ's stretch that he's been on the last 5 weeks?
He's a great player. He's a great player, and he works really hard to be where he is and to do what he's doing. And we need that. We need that from him. So, he's working. He's working, and it's showing.
Jalen, you guys have had so much success with the sneak. I think 4 for 4 again today. You mentioned the knee brace. Was there any thought that could affect that success, or was it just business as usual?
No, it wasn't.
What was it like catching up to afterwards? What can you share about that moment?
Really just excited that we won the game. He's having a great year. We have a great team, and as far as me enjoying the moment with my guys, I think that was a big win for us.
Jalen, to come back and lead that scoring drive after you threw
after the pick six. I mean, what does it say about you guys just responding to resiliency and everything? And did you say anything to the guys on the sideline before coming back in?
I mean, nothing really needed to be said. It was another very unfortunate play. But where we were mentally in the game, you know, was just pressing on and continue to do the things that we can control. And, you know, we did a great job there. We did a great job. It was obviously a big moment in the game. And then Slade making the play he made. The defense playing great all night. It was a great team win.
Take us to that last drive where you guys had the fourth down, 26. What was it like? You guys were out there, your mindset, communication, as you guys just really kind of made a statement and put it away there?
No, I think it was great decision making and great call by Coach Sirianni. Great trust in us and a ton of those fourth downs. Not only the fourth and ones in the end of the game, but the 4th and 5 or 6 where AJ scored, or they took it back. We got to the 1. So I think it was a ton of growth and a ton of areas for us as a football team from top down, and that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Every person in that organization, in this organization, is owning a growth mindset and growing, and just trying to be the best that we can be, you know. And then I think the one thing we can never forget of is that everyone has a role. So the challenge every day is just to, you know, dominate that role and learn as much as you can about your role so you can do it at a high level, and that's everyone's mindset in the building.
Tied Randall Cunningham for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in franchise history. Any additional meaning to it because it is Randall?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Kind of cool to do that wearing his old jersey. So, yeah.
Julio got involved. I was on a pitch count, but just to see him out there, get him involved a little bit, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, that was good to get him a touch. Obviously, you know, he's a great player. I've already spoken on that, and I think his resume speaks for itself in that. And you know, we just kind of continue to see where the year takes us with him. But I know he comes here and he's ready to go, ready to work, and kind of coming off the street a little bit in the middle of the season. But you know, it speaks for itself with him.
Jalen, as far as your health goes, what's the process like? You know, for the rest of the week, do you have more tests or anything like that, or what's on store for you?
Nothing too much. Just get ready for the next opponent.
Take 2 more.
What happened on the play where you scrambled to the right? On the play that AJ got down to the 1-yard line, is that like a scramble drill play that you just kind of keep himself alive for you?
It was. I guess I haven't been too good at those outside the pocket this year, but that one worked. So good.
How much do you appreciate Nick going for those 4th downs?
I think again that's just great trust. You know, there's a process to everything, and he tries to implement a process to everything that he does. So there's reasoning for everything, and I think that's the best way you can be. And for him to have the trust in us in those moments, in that situation, on all of those fourth downs, and go out there and make a play and execute, you know, that's all that matters, you know. And I think you know, it's the constant response when I talk about, you know, when I get the questions about, well, what do you think we could have done better, or how do you answer to this, how do you respond to this, whatever it is, you know, the answer is always execution. And so when we execute at a high level, when we're doing things the right way, when everyone's on the same page, it can be very special. When that is not the case, not so much. And so we just want to continue to grow, have the right mentality moving forward, be diligent with the game, remain persistent with it, you know, and keep pressing on, and keep building positive and good momentum. Just keep growing.
Okay, thanks, y'all. Thanks, everyone.
The Eagles hope to use this win as momentum going forward, and Jalen Hurts had his 13th career game with both a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown as well. So he definitely was able to not only reset after last week, but reset within the game. And I think that just shows a different level of emotional intelligence, really.
Yeah, we talk about this with Jalen and how he's able to just stay even keel no matter what's going on. You don't see his emotions go up and down throughout the course of the game. You never see him outwardly display frustration, right? He doesn't go over there slamming his helmet on the bench. You don't see him yelling at wide receivers, things of that nature. Jalen goes over and he collects his thoughts. He collects himself and he tries to figure out, okay, what do we do wrong on this series? Why did this happen? And let's make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and that speaks to his resiliency, his ability to bounce back from adverse situations, and that's what we saw. We talked about it earlier in the show. For those that missed it, was how did he respond after that pick six? Well, he led 2 touchdown drives to go win the game after that pick six. So, and he talked about it. It was an unfortunate play where the Eagles kind of bounced the wrong way for the Eagles, and they were able to capitalize. But the way the Eagles rebounded from that, very, very impressive.
Yeah, he threw for 2 touchdowns as well. One of those was to Dallas Goedert, who was celebrating National Tight Ends Day, and this was his second touchdown of the season. It's also the subject of this week's Ricoh review.
All right, so for this week here on the Ricoh Review, we're going to look back at the first touchdown of the game for the Eagles offense. A touchdown from Jalen Hurts to Dallas Goedert, and it came in the screen game. You can see here on second down, the Eagles are in a 2-by-2 set, and at the bottom of the screen, you've got A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. Now, the construct of this scheme is simple. Basically, you're going to have A.J. Brown come out. He's going to release at this corner because the corner is responsible for Dallas Goedert in coverage. When you want to try and run a screen, you want to make sure you block the defender that is responsible for the target. So with this corner responsible for Goedert, it is going to be A.J. Brown's job to make sure he gets him. The other guy at the second level that you have to account for is the safety. And you're going to see that Jordan Mailata, he is going to make sure that he is worried about this safety. But we're going to let this run for a second. I want you to watch just this small little item of detail from Jordan Mailata, because it would be very simple for Jordan with eyes really wide to say, you know what, I've got to get out to the safety. Let me make sure I go after him fast. But look at the angle. You can already see that he is coming out of this flat. He's not releasing immediately up here because remember, that safety is 195, 200 pounds. He is significantly smaller and more athletic than the 365-pound offensive tackle. So Jordan has to make sure that he is very smart with his angle. So what does he do? He comes flat down the line of scrimmage so that he can get out in front of Dallas Goedert and serve as a lead blocker, because if he goes too hard on this angle, well, now the safety can just run around him and get to Goedert. So look at what Jordan does. He's going to release down the line of scrimmage, and now he's going to serve as that lead blocker. He's got a great angle. Dallas does a great job of setting up his blocks, doing what he does so well with the ball in his hands, and the Eagles get into the end zone there on a tight end screen to Dallas Goedert. Great job by A.J. Brown. Great job by Jordan Mailata. Good execution there in the fringe area as the Eagles punch one into the end zone.
Fans, now is your chance to vote for Toyota Player of the Week. Go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/Toyota Player of the Week to cast your vote and get a chance at a brand new Toyota. As always, you have 3 selections for Toyota Player of the Week. The first, A.J. Brown, 10 for 13, 137 yards, a touchdown, which was 14 yards, and Dallas Goedert. I mean, we've been talking about him all game. His second TD of the season, and then Josh Sweat showing up big, 2 tackles, 2 sacks tonight. Just coming up nice and right when the Eagles needed him. Who gets your vote?
Defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Sweat tonight. I was wondering who they was going to nominate defensively. I was going to vote for that person.
It didn't matter.
What? Yeah, no matter what. Yeah, I think somebody needs to represent the defense. Josh Sweat, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, couple tackles for loss. I like it.
I like the mindset, and I think I would agree that he would be the player. But I feel like the defensive execution tonight was so team-oriented. It was such a group effort that it feels weird to like almost single out one of those guys. To me, I think if we're going to go one single performance, I'm going to go AJ. I think AJ, 5 straight games of 120 plus, but even just in this game, to be able to make some of the plays that he made in the quick game, on 3rd down, on 4th down, obviously the huge completion down the field to kind of seal the victory. He had the touchdown in the red zone to really kind of put the Eagles ahead for good. So I think when you look at A.J. Brown, to me, he gets my vote for this week.
Well, if you need any advice at home about who you should vote for, just to say, there were 4 total sacks on the night, and Josh Sweat had 2 of them. Yeah. Just point that out. Also, Tua Tagovailoa only has been sacked 10 times this season. Wow. 4 of them came tonight.
Wow.
I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just giving you the information that I have.
Kind of nudging you, just nudge you in the right direction.
Gently nudging you into Ike's side on the defense.
He's nudging Ike, but this is the first time he's voted for a defensive player all season.
That's true. That is true, yes.
So the Eagles walk away today with a win, but they will be back next weekend in an afternoon game against the Washington Commanders. That is the subject of tonight's Jameson Nightcap. Now, Washington is 3-4. They're 3rd in the NFC East. They just lost to the Giants 14-7. It was not a pretty sight, but we know from the first time that these two met back in week 4, there are no such things as an easy game in this one. The Eagles walked away with a 34-31 victory. How much of that first matchup will play a role in the building blocks of what we see this Sunday?
Oh, I would imagine big time. I mean, especially if you're Washington, they probably haven't looked as good offensively since that game where they scored 31 points in that game. They didn't scored 1 touchdown today against the New York Giants. So Eric Bieniemy needs to go back to the drawing board. They're going to try to figure out a way to slow down this Eagles offense that's a lot better than it was a month ago when they saw them. The passing game has caught fire. The running game will get back going. I thought Saquon had a nice day or a decent day against them running the football. So the Eagles are going to be able to do that as well with DeAndre Swift and our running backs. But it's a divisional opponent. And divisional opponents are always tough to play against.
Yeah, you talk about 2 different extremes. You go from Tua, who has been getting sacked at the fewest rate, the lowest rate of anybody in the league. You get to Sam Howell. He's on a record-setting pace in terms of being sacked. So, look, the Eagles did not get to Howell well enough in that first game. He was able to create plays outside of structure. He was able to run around and pick up yardage on his own. The Eagles will have to keep him corralled in this game. They had a good game plan, Washington, in that matchup. So you can bet that they'll have even some change-ups off of that. We'll see how the Eagles respond next week.
It is a quick trip down I-95, so I do expect to see a lot of Eagles fans down there as well. Eagles fans, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. Text EAGLES to 26797 to register to vote and check your voter registration status. Create a plan to vote this Election Day and let your voice be heard. Thank you so much for joining us on this late Monday night, or Sunday night. What day is
Monday
it?
morning.
Who am I anymore? The
Monday
Eagles
morning.
won. That's all that matters. Thanks so much for joining us. For Fran, Ike, I'm Marissa. Fly, Eagles fly, and enjoy your week.